Hey y'all, today I am here in the small town of Chester, Georgia, and what you see behind me is the Old Chester School. Now I attended this school from 1969 to 1978. Had a lot of fond memories here. Want to take a look, show you around? Go check it out with me. You know, when you're young and when you're small, things look so much bigger than they do when you get older. This school looked massive to me when I was a child. Can't get inside, but unfortunately, or fortunately for us, there's some broken windows and we can actually see inside some of the old classrooms now. And it's kind of a shame to see all the old books, textbooks and things that are just in ruins and going. I remember below those windows was the old chalkboard. Now this was the actual front of the school. I rarely came in and out those doors. I remember those steps as being so much taller than they are. I cannot believe it's only 4 steps. This old school was built in 1927, but then there was a tornado and it had to be rebuilt. And I think 1929, this is where we would come out and have recess. There were no fountains back in the day. We had 2 faucets here, and this is where we would get our water. The ball field was not there at the time. That was all grown up. And there was an old turned over train coal car down there. I remember when I was little, I was slipping off down there to smoke cigarettes, or trying to smoke cigarettes anyway. I don't think I actually smoked them, but yeah, that's where we little kids would sneak off to and get in trouble. Let's see if we can take a look in some of these classrooms, some of these windows. This is the old bathroom area. That's the auditorium. I don't know if anybody is familiar with this school or remembers this school or attended this school. Leave me a comment and let me know. It'd be nice to reconnect with some of the people that actually attended here. It's been used for different things over the years. I see it's used as a daycare at one time. I remember that. I don't think it's in use any longer. There's no windows in here, so yeah, that's years past. It's kind of sad to see this old school in this state of disrepair, though. These were classrooms. These were for the smaller children. I think these were like grades 1 to 3, and the older children went into the main school. This is the cafeteria. There used to be a walkway, a breezeway, an overhang from the school to the lunchroom door right here. See, it's long gone. It looks so small. That's the entire lunchroom area, the entire eating space, the dining area. And as a child, I remember that being so much larger than it is now, than it looks now. In here. Yeah, the windows are missing, so. Yeah, the kitchen back there. My mother worked here as a lunchroom lady when I was like second, third grade. I spent a lot of time running up and down this paved area and out here. But this old school, it's in a lot worse shape than I was expecting it to be. And that was the old gymnasium. I don't know what's in there now. There's the old gym floor. I think that's the original gym floor. If you can see it there. I used to be attended a lot of pep rallies here, basketball games, and there used to be, years ago, they would have what was called the Battle of the Guitars here in this building. Be a lot of local bands would come together and play, and you could come, and they had a concession stand. I came to that a few times when I was still, I think when I was still going to school here. This old building has a lot of memories, some good, some bad. See, the roof is in bad shape on this portion of it. And this used to be the old playground area. There were seesaws or teeter-totters right there. Looks really bad. That's a shame. This portion will be rotted down before long. Yeah, I attended kindergarten. There were two buildings right over here, and that's where I started kindergarten in 1969. It looks a lot different than it did then, of course. The building, of course, is definitely different, but even the landscaping around is different than it was all those years ago. I can say, if you attended this school, or if you're familiar with it, or if you're from Chester or the general area, leave me a comment and let me know. It'd be interesting, like I said, to hear from other people that are familiar with it. Maybe you haven't been back here in years, like me, and would be interested in just seeing what kind of state the old school is in. The sky is the limit when it comes to learning. I wonder how long that has been on that board. How many years that has been there. This was Chester High School originally. They consolidated the schools in Eastman, Georgia, and this became just an elementary school. It was an elementary school when I attended, because it became the elementary school in 1950, I think. But that's something you don't really see anymore. Uh, 1979, 1989. Yeah, these are really old. That's 1972 edition down there. These old books. Yeah, a lot of this stuff is still here from when the school was in operation. And this right here is really what is heartbreaking to me. I love books, and I hate to see that. We'll take a look around the town a little bit. That's about it for this old school. Let's take a look around the town a little bit. Now, the first house I ever owned was right down that road, less than half a mile away. Here in town, this old scale house was here when I was a child, and I don't think that it was in use at that time. I think it had already been discontinued. I don't want to step on that. Probably still viable, but I'm not so sure I want to step on that. There's the old scale. Now, the scale house, the little small shack, was here when I was a child, but it has rotted away. But the old scale and the actual scale itself is still there. I'm not sure what it was for or who owned it. My first job was right here. There was a service station standing here. It's since been torn down. This was Kirkham Jolly service station. I changed a lot of oil and tires, and there was a bay right here. This is the old lift cylinder. And we would wash cars, we would change oil. Gas pumps were here. There was one year that we had a hard freeze and all the electricity was out in town. We rigged up a bicycle with a fan belt to the pump and would turn the pedals to pump gas. We were the only place in town that had gas. And this is where the station, this is the floor of the station right here. That building right there at the time was a pool hall. I think it's been other things since then. I think it's been someone has lived in it. I'm not sure if they still do now or not. This old building's for sale now. Okay, it was I think this was the pool hall at the time. The next building up here was a laundromat. This was the laundromat in town back in the 70s. Not sure what it is now. The glass is painted like maybe someone lives there. I'm not sure. This building right here, there used to be something else here. It's no longer here, and I don't remember what it was. This has been a lot of things. Right now it's Sherry V's Kitchen. So apparently it's a restaurant. I don't remember what it was when I was young, but I do know it was a video store at one time. This is the bank. This used to be the Bank of Chester. I think it's Colony Bank now, if it's even in operation. Oh no, it's not. This bank is long closed. Very long closed. Oh my goodness. I was not expecting this building to be in this condition. Now this was my bank when I was a teenager. This is where I kept my money when I started my first job. I don't know how old this building is. That's a shame. That's a shame. That's what happens a lot of times, these small towns, these old towns. There's just not much business here. There's not much to attract people to keep things up. Now here's the city hall. This was not here. Right here next to where this building is, right here, there was an old store. My daddy worked in that store from the time I was born, or before I was born, until I think I was a teenager. They tore the building down, built the city hall here, and I think the fire station used to be here. But it was a grocery store, feed store, and it was just all kinds of things. They had all kinds of things here. That building across the street, those up there were apartments. Part of that building is gone. It used to come on back further. But the apartments, there was one elderly couple that I remember that lived in those apartments. That was Mr. and Mrs. Floyd. And here, where the store used to be, there were benches that were nailed from the support post. And I remember the old men that used to sit out there and talk. Now, later in years, this became the only grocery store in town. I see it's something else now, but at the time it was the grocery store. I was thinking about this sidewalk on my way here. there was no railing, and then this sidewalk is elevated quite a bit. It doesn't look quite as high as it did when I was a child. I remember when I was young that my head did not reach the top of the sidewalk, and I would try to jump up and climb up here. Looks like the city has installed railing, which is much better, because that was quite dangerous. And back behind the old Kirkham service station, there was a restaurant right there, owned by Owen Kirkpatrick. Don't remember the name of it. I think it was called Kirkpatrick's. This building over here was Theo's store. Mr. Theo had a small, what would be considered a convenience store nowadays. I remember he had some of the best cheese. I don't know if y'all remember the old cheese wheels under the glass. The cheese would be all sweaty and greasy. And I would come from the service station over to Mr. Theo's and get me a slice of that cheese and some crackers. Oh my goodness, that was so good. And I'd go over and sit in front of the station and have a break. Now this building was a restaurant at one time. I see it's not anything now. It is in bad state of disrepair. Let's see what this says right here. Theo Rogers, Alice Rogers, Jethro Rogers, J. Rogers, 316, 1961. How about that? Now that is something to see. I'm glad I saw that. Right over there next to Warren's Cabinet Company, there used to be another building, and that was a store that was owned by my uncle, C.A. Graham. Everybody called him Quarter. He was Uncle Quarter to us. I helped build these Chester apartments when I did construction work right down this road here. I believe this building here has always been, or was always, the city's, belonged to City Works, where they would store all the tractors and that sort of thing. I'm not sure that it still is. I think that's part of the city down there. That was part of the city building. Now years ago, all this was grown up. It was not as clean as it is today. The old water tower hasn't changed. We'll take a look right on down the street and take a look at some other things. Now these apartments were built 42 years ago. I helped build them. I was 19 years old at the time. And I grew up right down, not far from here. Way back when we walked home from school, we did not ride a bus or was a car rider. Nowadays, I don't think that's too safe. I don't think you could get away with that. But from the time I was probably 5 years old, I would walk home, and I know I would walk down the street right here. And I grew up in a house right down here. Matter of fact, I made some videos. That was Miss Anderson's house over there, that old house. It's still standing. Now the house I grew up in was right here. It's no longer here. It's been torn down a long time ago. Now I remember this ditch bank here as being much steeper than it is, and maybe it was steeper at the time, but the house itself was right in this area. And I made some videos on that about some of the strange occurrences we had in that house. You might want to, if you're interested in ghost stories or things of the unknown, go check those out. Now they've since built a Dollar General up here. This was not here. None of this was here at the time. This is, Dollar General. It's all new not new, but newer, much newer. This is the Baptist and the Methodist Church. And this was a church I attended from the time I was a baby, born, I suppose. It may still be, I'm not sure. But the Baptist church back there was an old white frame building, which later was moved and someone used it as a house. Now this old house across the street, it doesn't appear anyone lives there anymore. I remember a lot of families that lived there, and that was the church parsonage. I'm not sure if it still is, but this was the Methodist church. And I went to Boy Scouts, attended Boy Scouts in the basement of this church. A lot of old houses I don't think anyone lives in anymore. I think this was one of the teachers from the school when I attended school. I think he lived in this house. Now this is the post office, city post office, which is still the post office. This has been the post office as long as I can remember. Now this building has been rebuilt. This was the white spot, but it's no longer. That's been long since rebuilt. This little building right here on the right, this was a beauty shop when I was a teenager. It looks like it's someone's home now. Now this house belonged to the town barber. I see it's for sale. Since it's for sale, I'm going to get out and take a look at it. Yeah, the town barber lived here with Mr. Parkerson. He cut my hair when I was a child. The house is in really bad shape now. I know a lot of people have lived here since the Parkinsons were here, but I'm not sure this old building would be worth much now. It would probably take more to repair it than it would be worth. The old vines have grown up on the inside there. And the steps have completely collapsed. And the old porch is caving in. I'm not going to go up there. It's just in too bad a shape. Down this road was a city dump, it was just an open dump. There was no landfill or management to it at the time. It was just an open dump site. You go out there and throw your trash on the ground, and they would come and push it in piles. That's going to about do it for today. I'm going to end the video right back where we started, in front of the old school building. I really appreciate you coming along with me today. If you enjoy this type of content, if you like old buildings, small towns, that sort of thing, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today. Until next time, I'm Red. Thanks a lot.